All right, so are you ready to unlock some serious word power?
I am.
Because today we're taking a deep dive into the world of idioms, phrasal verbs, and slang.
Okay.
Those quirky little expressions that make English so wonderfully weird and
Yeah.
expressive.
Yeah.
We've got a stack of sources here, from etymology dictionaries
Ah,
to some really interesting linguistic studies, and we're going to extract the coolest nuggets of knowledge about these linguistic shortcuts,
yeah.
revealing their hidden meanings,
All
origins, and
right.
maybe even some fun memory tricks along the way.
Yeah, it's amazing how these seemingly small elements of language can pack such a punch,
For sure.
adding layers of meaning and personality to the way we communicate.
Totally. Like, think about how different it is to say, I recovered from the flu versus I got over the flu.
Mhm.
That simple change to get over
Yeah.
implies a whole process,
Right.
a journey of healing and moving on.
That's a great observation. And what's fascinating is that the etymology of get over actually reflects that sense of process. Get implying obtaining or reaching, combined with over meaning to surpass or move beyond, creates this idea of actively overcoming an obstacle.
It's like literally climbing over a hurdle,
Yeah.
right? That image really helps the meaning stick.
Yeah.
But it's not just about the literal meaning. Get over can apply to so much more than just illness.
Absolutely.
We use it for heartbreak, disappointment, even just a really bad day.
Absolutely. It speaks to our resilience, our ability to move through challenges and come out on the other side. And that ability to bounce back is crucial, when you say.
100%. It's almost like get over
Yeah.
is this little linguistic pep talk
Yeah.
reminding us that we've got the strength to overcome whatever life throws at us.
I like that, a linguistic pep talk. It's a reminder that words have power,
Yeah.
and understanding their nuances can empower us in subtle ways. Speaking of power, our next expression embodies that in a really interesting way: break the mold. This one always makes me think of innovators, rebels, people who dare to challenge the status quo.
Oh, I love that. It's got that defiant energy. Like, I'm not going to conform to your expectations. I'm going to do something completely new and unexpected.
Exactly. And the origin story is so fitting. It comes from the world of manufacturing, where molds are used to create identical shapes. So to break the mold means to create something unique, something that doesn't fit the standard pattern.
It's like that moment when an artist smashes a traditional mold to reveal a totally unique sculpture.
Right.
That image just screams originality and defying convention.
It's a perfect visual. And it makes me think, how many times have we been told to fit in to follow the rules? Break the mold is a reminder that true innovation comes from questioning those rules, from daring to be different.
It's a reminder that progress often comes from those who are willing to, well, break the mold. Now, I know we're talking about positive change here, but sometimes the world throws us a curveball, and we find ourselves, well, a bit bamboozled.
Oh, bamboozle, one of my favorites. It's such a playful word, yet it describes something that can be quite frustrating: being deceived, often through confusion or elaborate trickery.
It's like that scene in a movie where the con artist pulls off this elaborate scheme,
Right.
and the victim is left utterly bewildered, wondering how they fell for it.
Oh, the image that always comes to mind for me is a magician on stage
Okay?
performing a trick so baffling that the audience is completely captivated and confused at the same time. That's pure bamboozle,
Yeah.
a blend of entertainment and deception.
And the history of the word itself
Mm.
is almost as tricky as its meaning. It seems to have popped up in the early 18th century with roots in Scottish or Irish dialects. It's been bamboozling people for centuries.
It really has, and maybe that's part of its appeal. It has this whimsical sound, this almost mischievous energy that makes it stick in our minds.
Yeah.
But let's be honest, sometimes getting bamboozled can lead to a feeling of wanting to just give up.
Oh, I know that feeling all too well. Give up might not have the playful energy of bamboozle, but it's a powerful phrasal verb that captures a very real experience. That moment when we decide to cease effort to surrender, to acknowledge that sometimes persistence isn't the answer.
That's a really important point. Give up often carries a negative connotation, like it's a sign of weakness.
Right?
But sometimes recognizing when to let go is a sign of wisdom, of knowing our limits and choosing to focus our energy elsewhere.
It's like that image of someone handing something over and walking away.
Yeah.
It represents a conscious decision to release something that's no longer serving us, whether it's a project, a goal,
Yeah.
or even a relationship.
It's a powerful act of self-preservation, a way of acknowledging that sometimes the bravest thing we can do is to walk away. And that takes us to a fascinating question. How do we decide when to persevere and when to give up?
That is a great question. And we're going to delve into that and so much more when we come back for part 2 of our deep dive into the incredible world of idioms, phrasal verbs, and slang.
Welcome back, word enthusiasts. We're continuing our exploration of English idioms, phrasal verbs, and slang.
You know it.
As we've seen, these expressions aren't just about adding color to our language. They reveal fascinating insights into our history, culture,
Yeah,
and even our psychology.
totally. Like, it's mind-blowing how a simple phrase can carry so much weight,
Mm-hmm.
you know, connecting us to centuries of linguistic evolution
Yeah.
and shared human experiences.
Ooh.
Speaking of simple phrases, let's talk about one that evokes a sense of pure ease. Piece of cake.
Piece of cake. That classic idiom
Right.
that instantly conveys a feeling of effortlessness. Like something is so simple, it's almost, a piece of cake to accomplish.
Exactly. Like, imagine acing a test
Mm-hmm.
and saying that exam was a piece of cake.
Yeah.
It just oozes confidence and a sense of accomplishment without breaking a sweat.
It's interesting, though, because while the meaning is clear, the origins of piece of cake are a bit of a mystery.
Oh.
Some theories suggest it emerged in the late 19th century,
Awesome.
from the tradition of awarding cakes as prizes at competitions or social gatherings.
So if something was as easy to win as getting a slice of cake,
Yeah.
it was considered a piece of cake.
Yeah.
I love how that connects to a tangible reward, making the idiom even more appealing.
It definitely adds a layer of sweetness to the meaning.
Hmm.
And, it makes me wonder, have our standards for what constitutes easy changed over time? What was considered a piece of cake a century ago might seem like a monumental task today.
That's a great point. Maybe piece of cake is relative to the challenges of each era. Speaking of challenges, some days we need a way to release all that pent-up energy and frustration.
Mm-hmm.
That's where blow-off steam comes in.
Absolutely. This phrasal verb is all about finding healthy outlets for stress and emotions, like going for a run, listening to music, or even just having a good vent session with a friend.
It's like that feeling after a long, stressful day when you just need to do something to unwind and decompress.
Yep.
And the origin of blow-off steam is surprisingly literal.
It is. It comes from the days of steam engines where releasing excess steam prevented explosions.
Oh.
So in a way, when we blow off steam,
Yeah.
we're channeling our inner steam engine, preventing those emotional pressure cookers from reaching a boiling point.
I love that analogy. It makes me think of how important it is to find those healthy release valves in life, whether it's through exercise, creative expression,
Right.
or just spending time in nature.
Exactly. It's about finding what works for you, what helps you maintain that inner balance. And speaking of things that can sometimes get us a little overheated, let's delve into the world of secrets and gossip with Spill the Tea.
Oh, this one is juicy. It's that feeling of anticipation when you know someone has some exciting information to share, some juicy gossip to divulge. It's like, come on, spill the tea. I need to know all the details.
And what's fascinating about Spill the Tea is that it's a relatively recent addition to our slang vocabulary, likely emerging from African-American vernacular English in the early 20th century. It's a great example of how language constantly evolves and adapts, reflecting cultural shifts and the influence of diverse communities.
And thanks to social media, spill the tea has become even more popular in recent years. It's like this shared language of intrigue and excitement.
Yeah.
A way of connecting over those little bits of insider information that make life a little more interesting.
It's a reminder that language is a living, breathing entity constantly being shaped and reshaped by the people who use it.
I love that.
And speaking of shaping our own paths,
Okay.
our next phrasal verb is all about taking action and rising to the occasion, step up.
Step up is such a powerful expression.
Yeah.
It implies taking on responsibility, showing initiative, and being willing to go above and beyond when the situation demands it.
Exactly. Like when the team was facing a crisis, she stepped up and took charge. It's about having the courage to move into a position of leadership, to take ownership and make a difference.
And the imagery is so clear.
Right.
It's like literally taking a step forward,
Yeah.
moving into a position of greater responsibility or action. It makes me think of climbing a set of stairs, reaching a higher level of understanding or achievement.
It's a beautiful visual. And, it makes me think, are there moments in our lives where we've hesitated to step up? Maybe out of fear or self-doubt.
Yeah.
What would have happened if we had embraced that challenge, taken that step forward?
Ooh, that's a great question to reflect on. It reminds us that growth often comes from stepping outside our comfort zones and embracing those opportunities to lead and make a difference. And that takes us to another fascinating question. How do we find the courage to step up when those opportunities arise?
Excellent point. And you know what? We're going to explore that and so much more as we continue our deep dive into the wonderful world of English idioms, phrasal verbs, and slang in Part 3.
Welcome back, word nerds. We're wrapping up our deep dive into the colorful world of idioms, phrasal verbs, and slang, those linguistic gems that add spice, rhythm, and even a touch of mischief to the way we communicate.
It's been quite a journey, hasn't it?
Yeah?
Exploring the origins, meanings, and even the psychological nuances behind these everyday expressions.
It really has. We've uncovered some fascinating insights into how language evolves, reflects culture, and even shapes the way we think. But before we sign off, we've got a few more linguistic treasures to uncover. Let's start with a phrase that's all about resilience and inner strength.
Okay.
Buck up.
Buck up. That classic call to action, urging someone to be strong, courageous, and resilient in the face of adversity.
It's like a two-word pep talk, right?
Yeah.
Like, hey, things are tough right now, but buck up. You've got this.
Exactly. And while the origins of buck up are a bit murky,
oh, really?
Some theories suggest it might have emerged in the 19th century, possibly from the image of a bucking bronco.
A wild horse that resists being ridden?
So to buck up is to resist negativity, to fight back against those feelings of despair or defeat. I love that connection to the natural world, that sense of untamed spirit.
It adds a layer of grit and determination, doesn't it? It's like saying, I'm not going to let this break me. I'm going to rise above it.
Speaking of rising above things, sometimes we need to acknowledge the big, unavoidable issues that are staring us right in the face. You know, like the elephant in the room.
Ooh, that's a good one. It's such a powerful idiom because it captures that feeling of tension and discomfort when something important is being ignored.
Right.
Like everyone's pretending it's not there.
Precisely. It's like, okay, we can't keep tiptoeing around this issue. We need to address the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
The company's declining profits, the tension in the team, whatever it might be.
It forces people to confront the issue head on, which can be uncomfortable, but ultimately necessary for growth and progress.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how the origins of this idiom are actually quite recent, likely emerging in the mid-20th century.
It goes to show that language is constantly evolving.
Right.
And sometimes even the most powerful expressions are relatively new additions to our vocabulary. But what makes the elephant in the room so effective is the vivid imagery. You can't ignore an elephant in a room, just like you can't ignore a major problem that's affecting everyone.
It's such a brilliant metaphor.
Okay.
Ready to lighten the mood a bit? Let's wrap things up with a slang term that's all about expressing pure enthusiasm and excitement.
Okay. Lit. Lit. One of those words that just oozes energy and positivity. It's like saying something is amazing, exciting, or enjoyable to the max.
Exactly. Like that party was lit, or that new song is so lit. It's a way of amplifying your enthusiasm and letting everyone know that you're fully on board with whatever's happening.
And it's a great example of how slang terms often originate within specific communities and then spread to wider usage. Lit, for instance, has roots in African-American vernacular English, likely emerging in the 1980s hip-hop scene.
It's fascinating how language travels, adapts, and evolves through these cultural exchanges. And now, lit is pretty much mainstream slang, even making its way into dictionaries.
It's a reminder that language is a living, breathing thing, constantly being shaped and reshaped by the people who use it.
Well said. So as we wrap up our deep dive into the world of idioms, phrasal verbs, and slang, we hope you've gained a newfound appreciation for the power of language.
These expressions aren't just about adding color or personality to our conversations. They're windows into our history, our culture, and even our psychology.
They're reminders that language is constantly evolving, reflecting the way we think, the way we interact, and the way we experience the world around us. So keep exploring, keep listening, and keep paying attention to those little linguistic nuggets that make language so fascinating.
And most importantly, have fun with it. Don't be afraid to experiment, to play with language, and to embrace those quirky expressions that make you smile.
Exactly, because at the end of the day, language is about connection, expression, and sharing our unique perspectives with the world. Until next time, happy word nerding.